All right, so let's go ahead and review some code that we learned yesterday, and then we're going to learn some new code. All right, so Doctype is the first bit of code that you are putting on your website, and that is so you can declare the type of document that the computer has to interpret. Okay, so the way that we would write that in our coding example is we start it with an exclamation mark and all caps Doctype, and then we have to say what the document is. In this case, it's HTML. Okay, that has to be the very first piece. So it declares the document. This is so that HTML5 can work and we get to do all the features that HTML5 has. All right, the next piece that we have is we have the HTML tag, and that's a structure element so that we can kind of organize our page. So the HTML5 or HTML, we just start that with HTML, and then we have our closing tag, HTML. You always have to have beginning and ending tags on almost all tags. Now we have learned that there are attributes that we can assign. So for HTML, I can assign a language attribute. That would be English, and there's a lot of other ones that you could do. So everything inside here between these tags is what our code is going to be. It's easiest to think about it as this is the parent, and I'm going to create children that are going to be underneath it. Okay, so all code needs to be inside of this. All right, so the first child that we have is our head, which is kind of like the background part of your code. Your code. All right, so when we're building that, again, head, and then I have to do an end tag, head, and inside of that is what I'm putting my background stuff. So you guys learned the title, right? Title, okay. And that would be the title that gets displayed on that tab. This is my title on the tab. Okay, and there are other ones in there, so we want to indent this because these are children. Tab. Head is a child to that HTML document. Title is a child to that head. Okay, there are other ones that we can use that we're going to get into for inside the head tag. Body is what I see on the page. So my coding for that, it would be the same thing. So I have my head, I have my body, and I have to do an end tag for that. Okay, so now we are having more structure. Body is a child to the HTML tag. It is also a sibling to the head tag because they're in the same line. Okay. But there's other ones that we can use. So let's look at the other ones that we can use. We could use meta, which helps for SEO or search engine optimization. So if we were looking at search engine optimization, really all it is the better you can organize your code, your website, the greater chance that you're going to have natural organic results and get pushed up in search engines. Okay, so having meta tags in your documentation helps search engines know what to do with it. So there's a few that we want to look at. we want to do, so we're still inside the head because it's going to be a child of the head, meta, and then this one, meta, is one of the few that does not require an end tag. So let's put that in there. Does require an end tag. Okay, there are a few. So inside here, meta, we give attributes and then we give values for those attributes. So the first one could be the type of character sets that we're using to display the material. So char set would be the character set. UTF-8, that's a good default one to use. Let's do another one, meta. And we want to do some search engine optimization. So let's give a name. That would be our attribute, and we're going to assign it the name of description, which is in HTML5, and then we can give it content. So we do another attribute of content, and we can give it that description. So this is my HTML5 web page. Okay, and we have to close it off with a tag. Now when you do this and you try testing it out, you're not going to see it on your page because it's running in the background. There's information that is getting passed to the computers. So let's do another one, meta name equals, and this one we want it to be keywords. So we want if anybody was typing in keywords, we want them to be able to find our material. Content, and we can write stuff separated by commas. So HTML, CSS, HTML5, JavaScript, whatever you want to use to describe your content, your web page. Minimize that. Okay, so we got quite a bit. That is all for the head. Now we can do links, and links could be used in your head for linking to style sheets, but can also be used for, let's say, favicons. Can be used for, all right, so let's see what that looks like. So if I go into literally any web page, right here, all the Google ones, you see how it has that G right there? That is a favicon. It's a small, like 16 by 16 pixel icon that I can just help to add flair to my website. You could do a search for them. If we went to Twitter and we went into Twitter, we would be able to see their favicon. See, there's a favicon. We go into Wikipedia, they have a favicon. Just a little bit of way to add flair. So they just have a simple W. It's not anything complex. Okay, and we could do that. We could download a favicon. We could create one. You could do one in Paint and create that. So if I wanted to do that in code in my head, oops, let me close that off. It would be as simple as doing link. That's the tag right there, but now I have to actually add some attributes to it. So this is another one that does not require an end tag. Does not require an end tag. Okay, so, but we have to add attributes. So the first thing is we're going to say, well, what is the relationship? So rel equals, and that's what it is. Well, it's an icon. Okay, and then href, which is something that we're introducing now. This stands for Hyperlink Reference. So I can give a location where that image is. So usually it'll be something like this. Inside of your folder, so inside of your Hello World folder, you could download one of those favicons and you would create a folder inside of that web design folder. So if I was looking at mine, now keep in mind yours is not in documents, it's in your Z drive. So if I was in Hello World, I would want to create a new folder and I would call it images. Okay? And this is where we're going to end up talking a little bit down the road on relative and absolute link references. But images, if I create a folder for that inside my Hello World, then if I want to download something from online, like a favicon, I created something, I'm going to put it in that images folder to keep everything organized. And then in my code, I would be referring to that folder. Images, that's my folder right there. And then the name of it. So let's say it was just called favicon.png. Okay? If my name was this and it was inside of this folder of my project, that would go ahead and open. Okay? It only works if the website, so my index.html, is located in that entire folder structure. If I have the images somewhere on my desktop, then when I try loading this online, those links are going to break because people don't have access to my desktop from the internet. Okay, so that would be an example of a link that we could use. And then we're going to have a couple more attributes, type, and this is an image that is a PNG. Okay, and then the last thing is I need to give it a size. So size is equals, and I want it to be 16 by 16. That's just a lowercase x, and that would be really all that I would need to have that favicon load right after my title. So my title would say this is my title on the tab, and this would be my icon. Okay. Now, for organization of other code, our body can cover a lot of different things, and we have to have a way to organize that. So if I'm looking at kind of a general way, as soon as I can get into it, a general way of what a website would look like, because all websites are a little bit different, but they're all going to share the same type of structured elements. And HTML5 isn't how I'm doing my layout. It's what is in my web page that is my layout. So I may end up having a section that is ultimately like my header. So this area would represent my header, and I'll go ahead and I'll highlight that in green. That's my header. Okay. Pretty much all websites have some type of navigation. So let's say that would be like my navigation. All websites have an area where they have their main information, and then they have a sidebar of maybe links and stuff like that. Okay, and then on the bottom of most websites you usually see some small text that is their institutional part of that, okay, or what we would know as a footer. So I have like a header, I have a navigation bar so I can go back and forth from web pages, I have my main information for my website, I have a sidebar, and I have institutional stuff. Now if I'm doing this in code with HTML right now, all of that's just going to be in line, one right after the other. It's not going to show any different until we get into CSS. But we could still organize our stuff. It used to be when you had websites that they would actually do it in tables. But the problem is that if I was on a cell phone or a tablet, my web page would start looking different. It would not resize properly. It would start cutting off pieces of text like this would be. and it would just look really ugly. So we needed a way to organize the content better. So then they started using division tags, and that worked. But the problem is that it became really hard to manage because a division tag is a very generic tag. And this is what a division tag looks like, and it does have an end tag on it. So this is useful to help break up your code, but it's a generic division. So you should use this when you don't have any other elements to use. You have nothing else to use. Okay. Outside of that, though, HTML5 has introduced a lot of cool different elements that we can use, tags that we can use that would better help organize our data, which is good, so that when we go to websites, the search engines are able to identify what each piece of my website is. So a tag for that would be like main. Main, written like that, is what I would use for my main information. That blue, let's go into it. That blue that I have here. I could use the main tag to organize all of the main content for my page. It's like the central topics of it, okay? So that would be main. For my navigation bar, I could use nav. So this is main content. I could use nav, which stands for navigation, and it does have an end tag. This is used for your main menus and your navigation. Okay. We have other areas. We have tags that we can use to help break up different pieces. So inside my main tag, I could have section tags to help break up the content inside of my main. So let's say that I have my main content, is a bunch of articles or sections that I want to go to. So this section is purely for dealing with like thematic content. So maybe in my web page, I'm going to have something about hobbies. I'm going to have something about, extracurricular. I'm going to have something about education. Okay. So this is used as like right underneath main for breaking up thematic content. Okay. And then you also have article. Article is used for representing like an independent item of content. So like a forum, a post, magazine article, a blog entry, a comment. So that would probably be inside of your sections, used to break up an independent, helps if I spell right, independent item of content. Okay, let's see, what else do we got? We have the header. We haven't talked about that one. So the very top are titles. We would have a header for our web page that would give the title on the body. Okay, and then we have an address, the stuff that we would probably see on the side. So these right here, so we have header for here, we have nav, we have main that can be broken up using section and can be broken up farther using article. But we have to have a way to deal with this. So the tags that we could use for that, again, you could still use section to break up thematic content in there, but to recognize that it's going to be something that's on the side and it's not on the main would be the aside tag. So hold on, body title. So we have the aside. which could be used for like dividing the information that's not part of the main content, but it could be referencing, say, those articles or those links to previous posts. So it's not part of main content, but could be referencing. So in your page, your website, maybe you end up having, a sidebar that is pulling up your previous blog post or something like that. And in your main content, you're displaying the most recent 3. Okay, a side would help us be able to do that. And then finally, the other one that we could use would be our footer. This would be for that institutional stuff, the stuff that you have that's smaller on your page at the very bottom. So that's like used for copyright information, contact information. Maybe you'll always have some contact information on every single page. That is what we could use it for. So if we were building some of this in our body, we're going to start with a header and title of page. And then I finish that off. So once you get used to using tags, you have a beginning and end tag, it's not too difficult. You just have to start organizing your content. Getting it to look pretty, getting it to organize itself in a specific way where maybe you have that sidebar, that's not going to happen until we start doing CSS. But knowing the tags for it, this will ultimately help you be able to organize your content, which is going to help you build your content and have it look much nicer. Okay, so if we have a header, underneath the header, we'll probably have a nav. Okay, and so header is a child of body, nav will be a child of body and a sibling of header. Okay, so this would be like my main menu. So maybe I'm going to have, home, and then I'm going to hit, it's the key right above the enter. It's called a pipe. So if I hit that key right above the enter, I can get a straight vertical line, just so that I can kind of break it up. About, maybe a contact, and maybe, let's say maybe portfolio. Okay, so that would be the stuff that would show up for my navigation bar. Now we have our main, so we want to build that up. Like what I said, we could have a bunch of different stuff in there. So main, and then I'm going to go ahead and close it, main, and inside there, so that's also a child of body, but it's a sibling to header and nav. Inside a main, I could have a section that I'm going to use for a particular purpose. Let's say I'm going to have 2 of those. So I'll go ahead and copy that. So inside of this section, now section is a child of main, I'm going to have, let's say, an article. So instead, maybe I'm going to have 2 articles in there. I can go ahead and I could type article and use that article tag to break up. So let's go ahead and copy that. I'm going to have 2 of those. Your web page is going to be probably a little bit different. When you guys start actually designing it, I'm not really trying to cookie cutter you into a specific website. So this is my first article for this section. Okay, and then we have another one. It's going to put spaces. This is my second article for this section. Okay, so that could be, you know, blog post, a comment. All right, and then I have this other section, which is maybe just photos. So photos, okay, not a big deal. And then we have our aside, which is maybe our links for our other stuff. So we're not in main anymore. It's going to be a sibling of main, but a child of body. We got aside. Okay, and here I can have my sidebar. Okay, which I could break it up using sections and articles if I wanted. It's really just how I'm organizing my data. The computer is going to look and say, oh, that is what you are saying is your navigation bar, okay, because it's inside of the nav tags. Oh, this is an article because you have it listed in between article tags. The computer could see, oh, you have two sections in your main content, and that's how it's going to start breaking it up and organizing it to help your website be optimized for search engines. Okay, so go ahead and start playing around with this. You guys are going to want to start really planning what you want your website to be. Because instead of you just walking through my code and then doing a little tiny project, I would rather you take some of my example code stuff, adapt it to what you want to do for your web page, and start organizing your content. Okay? You're going to end up wanting to have specific keywords for your web page. Now this stuff that we just did, you can go ahead and add that to your index.html that you already started, okay? So you can just further build it out. I am expecting that you guys are learning these tags and how we're using them, if they have an end tag or they don't have an end tag, and the reason why we're using them, okay? The only one that we didn't really go into detail yet is the div tag, but using the other ones, you'll see how to be able to use that one. We're going to be talking about actually starting to break up some attributes for class and for ID that we could use for CSS in the next couple days. All right, go ahead, play around with this, and in your index.html, play around with the tags. They all pretty much appear the same until you end up getting to CSS to actually start using those individual tags to add flair to your website. Have fun.